I think it's fundamentally a structural shift. For years, we've seen the private credit and securitization to be in two distinct streams of work. But in the meantime, private credit managers are becoming quite huge and issuing a lot of assets. They're grown significantly. And they're looking at diversifying their source of funds, the refinancing, and also to actively manage those assets. At the same time, we have all the investors becoming much more sophisticated, and they were no longer looking at the underlying assets, but they were also looking at the allocation, the distribution in the most efficient way and on a different scale. So I don't see that as a temporary market trend. I really see that as a shift in the way the business is approached by the players there. I think it reflects the continued growth and the maturity now of the private credit market. So first of all, I think it's important to mention that they're not in competition. They're really complementary toolbox. We also need to distinguish between what the EU securitization regulation is doing and what the Luxembourg securitization law is doing. So the EU securitization law or the EU securitization regulation is analyzing the transaction that is done. The Luxembourg securitization framework is providing the vehicle, the platform, to proceed to different transactions and different financing. And what we can say also, it's the flexibility of the Luxembourg securitization vehicle, specifically after the 2022 reform, and even more now with the new bill of law that we expect to be passed and final, hopefully this year. If I had to identify something that remained underused on the market, I will definitely say that it's the flexibility of the Luxembourg tools. So far, it has been used for quite traditional transactions, not in all instances, but most of the time for traditional transactions, while actually this is a very flexible, a very good tool and financing platform that can be used for much complex and much sophisticated platform transactions. Many international market participants still associate Luxembourg with traditional structure, while the vehicle is providing a much more flexible financing platform, and I think they're starting also to see that, and this is why it will be better known by the market participant, in my view. So I don't think the challenge is legislative. I think the challenge is about awareness, and I think now we have also the association that is providing and promoting that platform to be known by the market. In my view, so it changed 2 years ago, but it's the scale of the change that is important. So the client started by asking whether we can do a particular transaction to whether that transaction can be done efficiently, at scale, and swiftly. So that's the fundamental change for me. Clients are increasingly thinking beyond the first transaction. They really look for a financing platform for sophisticated transaction. They're looking at program structures, they're looking at warehouse financing, they're looking at diversification. They're also much more focused on operational issues that can be regulatory, that can be coverage ratio, that can be active management, something that was not necessarily broadly asked for securitization vehicle. So now clients are also asking how securitization is interacting with other sectors, such as the banking regulation, the capital management, the active management. Those are things that are evolving quite quickly, and those conversations are becoming much more strategic than purely legal. So the clients are not just looking at a compliance structure, they're really looking at a sophisticated structure and a financing platform that can sustain along the way and provide them with a tool for their businesses on the long term.